All right, our next guest on the conversation had a description that puzzled me a little bit. His name is Tom Bowman, and he's got a website, bowmanchange.com. And then I missed one word, and so the other part of the description was, what if solving the climate crisis is simple? And I was like, okay, that sounds good. What if? But is that your job title or something? And then I realized, oh no, he wrote a book called "What If Solving the Climate Crisis Is Simple?" And then I thought, yeah, what if it is? I want to have Tom on and talk about it. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
No problem. And I saw Michael Mann, who's so important to the climate change movement, praise the book. So that's wonderful to see. So Tom, I'm hoping you can show me that it is simple. I'm crossing my fingers. How would it be simple?
Well, we've been taught about climate change from scientists who study very complex global systems. And we've been taught that the solutions to climate change also involve these incredibly complex and hopelessly intertwined global systems. So for example, if you want to reduce the carbon footprint of food production, you suddenly are dealing with international shipping, you're dealing with water supplies and water transportation and the development of fossil fuel-based fertilizers and herbicides, and international finance markets and government relations. And it becomes something that's so big that we're all left with the impression that only a few technical elite folks can even get their arms around it. And so it's like we've created this mental image of a Gordian knot that we don't know how to untie. And it makes all of us feel small and powerless. But if you turn that upside down on its head and you ask yourself, what do we have to do to solve climate change? The answer is incredibly straightforward. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. We have to do it before mid-century, and we absolutely don't want to fail. And when you frame the issue that way, it means that we can all act. Our businesses can act, our households can act, our local governments can act, because we can all reduce fossil fuel consumption very, very rapidly if we choose to. And that will create the kind of cultural force that will start to move our politics in a more productive direction.
So Tom, when you say end fossil fuel usage, well, we're going to run into a couple of issues here, right? So
sure we are.
Yes. So obviously, one issue is, well, we use it now, right? So we've got cars that use gas, et cetera. And you're sort of talking about 2050. Well, that's not that far. It's less than 30 years away.
It's around the corner.
Yeah. So how do we just stop using fossil fuels?
So let's take the example of a small business or a personal household. There are some very, very simple things you do. You switch to LED light bulbs and you plug everything into power strips that shut off at night. And that takes care of, for the most part, 10 to 20% of a person's electricity use. That's the very low cost stuff. If you live in a hot environment like I do, you want to minimize air conditioning, so you want shade. It's as simple as that. You want airflow through where you live. You want fans. Some of that stuff is so simple that we think it's trivial, but collectively it's not trivial. More importantly, as you start to budget out, we talk about climate change as an existential threat. That's the term Biden has started to use. And yet we live as though we can go on this way forever. And that creates this bizarre cognitive dissonance. Electric vehicles are coming on the market like crazy. They're cheaper to operate than gas-powered cars. And gas-powered cars are getting much, much more efficient. So upgrading sooner rather than later, making a priority out of this to whatever degree we're able to, and according to whatever circumstances we're in, right? So if you live up a dirt road somewhere and it's rutted, you need a pickup truck, you need a pickup truck. If you live in a city, the question is, do you need a car? If you live in a city where you need a car, what kind of car do you really need to drive? So these are the kinds of things that seem small, but actually can make major reductions in our energy consumption. And then the most important thing we can do is we can start talking about what we care about and what we're doing with other people, because that breaks the ice. That starts to create this sense of mutual support. And in my experience, having decarbonized my business and talked with lots of other people about this, what happens is you liberate this really powerful sense that people have of worry about this and this intense desire to get rid of smog, to clean up our air, to clean up our water, to live healthier, happier lives, if we can liberate that sense, we can accelerate the kind of social momentum that we really need to deal with this challenge.
But Tom, of course, the number one challenge is political, right? So we can all chip away at it, but the government's got to step in and do much larger changes. And there, the issue isn't climate change at all, and in popular opinion, about 2/3 of the country believes that climate change is real and is man-made. In other countries, that's like 99%. In America, because of the propaganda, it's only 2/3. But still, it's 2/3 in a democracy that should win easily. But of course, as you know, it doesn't at all, because our problem in America isn't the politics of climate change, it's the politics of campaign financing. And so, as long as our politicians are allowed to take infinite money from fossil fuel companies, they're just going to be corrupt, and they're not going to care about burning down the earth, and they're going to burn it down. So how do we fix that?
I think we fix it by not starting with federal politics. I think we fix it with people, with business owners, with communities, with community groups, with households, with neighborhoods, with local governments, with state governments. The social science on this is very clear that if we have fought forever to try to bring the deniers along, those who are least amenable to acting on climate change. We've got to somehow convince them to join us in some sort of compromise that will address this challenge. But the social science says, we would be much more effective if we empowered the people who are most worried about this problem to start taking it seriously, to start acting on it where they live, which is where they feel it most powerfully. And that means in local politics, it means in demands on local companies, it means where they work as employees or employers. As I mentioned, I decarbonized my company, and I discovered just how powerful the idea that people could come to work at a place that was doing something really productive was for the people who worked for me. No idea until we did that. And I think that this is the real hidden opportunity that's in our culture. I spoke with a congressman who said exactly what you said. He said, you have to understand that everybody in Congress is there to represent the people who paid to put them there. And that is such a terrible indictment of our political system. And so I sort of wonder sometimes if legislation will be the last act we make in fighting the climate challenge, that we will demand more of businesses, that we will demand more of our households, of our neighbors, of our local governments, and that eventually, as we change our culture and our social expectations of one another, that the federal government will pick up the pieces and come along behind. Now, we all hope that the Biden administration will be far more successful than any previous administration on this issue, and we should all work for that. But we shouldn't assume that it's all on them, that we don't have a role to play beyond demanding more of government.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask people to get involved, not just in local government, but also in the federal government's politics. And so what I mean by that is, look, you said that we hope that Biden can do better. Well, he has a plan to do better. And in fact, right now, they're arguing a $3.5 billion infrastructure plan that actually has really good parts of it that are part of climate change. I'm a progressive, I don't trust corporate Democrats. And so if I tell you it's a good bill, it's a good bill, okay? And so now having said that, it's unlikely they'll pass it. And it's because Biden won't try, and I don't really believe him that he wants to try. And there's not enough pressure on Manchin and Sinema, who are corrupt. And so we have to have the courage to also not just like beseech, but fight. That's my opinion. Because Tom, we're gonna run out of time. I mean, June was the hottest month recorded in over a century in America. It was 4 degrees hotter than a normal June would be across the country. That is massive. That is unreal. That is 4 degrees hotter. Overall temperatures have risen 2 degrees already on the planet. That is massive. And right now, about 95% of the West is under drought, and we're worried about Joe Manchin's feelings.
That's right. That's right. And so there is a powerful move to make publicly in the federal political fight. But we also don't want to be downhearted or held back if those battles go badly from time to time, because it's a tough row to hoe, and we should fight it hard. But we should also get moving. We don't have time to wait for the federal government to finally come to the table, especially if they come to the table in a half-hearted way. We need to stop emissions as quickly as we possibly can. And we need to make our communities as climate resilient, as adapted as we possibly can. We need to start understanding that this migration debate and immigration debate is really about climate change, because people are migrating all the way north across Mexico because it has become unlivable in the tropics where they're from. Think about that. This is going to get worse and worse and worse as time goes by. We need to put a stop to it. And that means we need to start owning this. We need to start taking it on as if it's my responsibility, it's your responsibility, it's each of your listeners' responsibility. And those of us who are willing should step up, challenge ourselves to do more than we thought we could do, and talk about it with our peers, and discover when we do that, and this is the best part, you discover you're part of a community that cares just as deeply as you do. And this sense that I'm a lone voice in the wilderness goes away, and you realize we just need to crystallize the movement that's actually here in our hands. We just haven't recognized it yet.
Right. Okay, we're out of time, but your migration point is a very good one. And soon Canada is going to start building a wall because,
yes,
I mean, it's not just Las Vegas. Have you been to Houston in the summer? It's become nearly uninhabitable. And so we're all in deep trouble here. Tom's book is What If Solving the Climate Crisis is Simple? Tom, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.